fiscal year 24 budget. Mr. Tootin?
Mr. Chairman, members of council, Carl and John are going to lead us off with the capital improvement plan.
Mr. Chairman, council, my name is Carl Wolfile. I'm from the Facilities Department. Together with Mr. John Williams from Capital Improvements, we're going to brief your 5-year capital improvement plan. Before we get into individual projects, I want to just give you a quick overview of our individual campuses in the local area. So starting off with the administrative campus, first we've got the Public Services Building, which was occupied in 2001, the Perimeter Center in 2009, the Coroner in 2017, and then most recently the Support Center for the Public Libraries in 2019. And most recently, we've identified the office building behind the Service Support Center for the libraries is an office building that used to be occupied by Boeing. It's up for lease, and it's a great opportunity to put the Board of Election and Voters Registration into with minimal upfit. And so we've been researching that and doing some studies on it, and we plan to move forward with that based upon your approval previously. Additionally, on that slide, I want to show that there's a dashed area that's not owned by Charleston County, but it has been identified by leadership as a potential for future acquisition if we need it for expansion of services. For the corrections campus, of course, we've got the 2 jails, one built in 93 and then 2010. The Department of Juvenile Justice was upfitted in 2020, and then the Juvenile Detention Center, of course, was finished in 2022. And then we also have hashed out there with the space for the Biological Science Center, which John will talk about here in a few minutes. And then I've also got hashed out there currently owned property behind the Sheriff's Office Metro Center is some potential areas where we can expand into. One idea that has been floated is for a potential small arms range. Of course, it would be an indoor range at that location, but we're still exploring that as an opportunity. And then over at the Azalea complex with the 52 acres consolidated now, of course, we've got the existing fleet administration shops and garages that will not change. Same thing with the law enforcement center will remain as is. But we're building the new fuel depot that includes a new Dorchester Road access road. I'll talk more about that later. And then we just broke ground on the Azalea Phase 2, which includes the facilities management and public works admin building and also their equipment storage yard on the far side of Azalea complex. And then we just talked about how the Board of Elections and Voter Registration is potentially or probably moving to a new lease space, and so they're going to be coming out of their current building, and EMS Logistics is also going to come out of that building once Azalea Phase 3 kicks off and builds them a new facility on the southern portion of Azalea complex. And so that existing building there will not be reused and will probably be demolished. So the final footprint of the Azalea complex will look as such. The green areas are the existing facilities that will remain and not change. The yellow blocks are the things that are currently under construction, under contract. The orange block is to be constructed in the future for Azalea 3. And then the middle portion in gray is unplanned and unprogrammed and available for future use. If there are no questions, I'll be preceded by Mr. Williams, who will talk about some individual projects.
Thank you, Carl. First project is the Azalea Phase 2 complex, which most of you are aware we just broke ground on 2 weeks ago. This is on the corner of Leeds Avenue and Headquarters Road. It's a design-build project led by Trident Construction, SMHA, DWG, and Thomas & Hutton. It includes a 23,000 square foot administrative office building, 29,000 square foot shop for facilities management, and a 37,000 square foot shop for public works. Design is complete, and we're currently in permitting. Construction is underway with the utility disconnects and mobilization on the site. Demo should start next week. We're estimating a 30-month construction period, which will have this project completed roughly the first quarter of 2026. Moving on to Phase 3 of Azalea. So this is located along Azalea Drive, where the current fueling site is now. This site has to be vacated by Public Works once Phase 2 is completed. So a lot of the planning for this is in the future. But this will be for EMS administration and logistics, along with the relocation of EMS Station 12, which is currently on Dorchester Road. We are planning in first quarter of '24 to have a programming exercise with those users to better understand their needs and do that prior to going out to an RFP for design services. We anticipate design to start in fourth quarter of '24 and construction would start first quarter of '26. The next project on my list is the Tri-County Biological Science Center. This is located on Leeds Avenue at the corner of Brickyard Creek Drive next to the jail property. It is a design-build project with contract construction, LS3P, DWG, and Revere Group. After our current programming exercises were completed in February, it was deemed to be a 15,000 square foot facility, and all the square footage was all based around data when we looked at the current needs of the community and projecting out 30 years with the growth of the county and the current needs doing the assessment. This would be for a 15,000 square foot facility for forensic biology, DNA. We also looked at seized drugs and toxicology, but they were not included in that 15,000 square foot. The design on this is currently on hold while we continue to get the adjacent land purchased, and so we can guarantee when we lay everything out, we lay it out for the future and not just for today, and the final selection of the program. On last year's CIP, we had the emergency services building. Due to the increase in construction costs and project needs and funding for other project needs, this has been slid back a couple of years. It is now located in the beyond 5-year category for the expansion of this building. The Teddie Pryor Senior Social Services building is complete and operational. We found a significant savings at the end of that project, which has been moved forward to help pay for some of the increases in the other CIP projects. So that was a big win for that project. Now I'll pass back to Carl.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Williams, before you leave, the Public Works facility on Azalea, there's fuel there. Is there any environmental concerns there? Do we have time built in for any of that stuff to be vetted?
The property that building's going on to. So we've done some environmental studies and everything came back where it fits within the requirements for that type of facilities. I don't see any delays. No.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
John, how much did we save on the social service building?
It was a $66 million project and it's roughly $7 million.
Okay, thank you.
Get any ideas, Mr. Pryor?
Going back to Azalea Complex, we're currently in construction on phase 1 of the Azalea Fuel Depot. The purpose of this was to relocate the current fueling station up to a portion to allow for the future development of Azalea Complex, also to expand the service and to make it larger and to modernize and to make it better. Currently 30% completion. It is being constructed by Leitner Construction. Weston & Sampson is the architect engineer firm on it. It includes all the sources of fuel that you could put on it and also a new maintenance office and a wash bay. Expected to be complete in August of 2024. We also had a request from Fleet across Headquarters Road to expand one of their maintenance bays. With the expansion of our ambulance fleet that they've seen, they're having a hard time getting all of their ambulances into the bays. So they wanted to add on another bay to the existing facility, and then also a overhang that goes down the length of the building in order to allow them to do some work on the outside. They're already doing work outside the bays, and so that would just help keep them out of the weather some more. EMS Station 8 out on Edisto is at 100% design. Already gone to procurement for putting that out to contract. Once that gets awarded, expect a 14-month construction after award, but that'll be a much-needed project out there on Edisto Island. Similarly, St. Andrews PSD approached the county about doing a collaborative project where they were already planning on building a fire station out on Ashley River Road and Old Parsonage, where there was a vacant grocery store, old grocery store that had been demolished. So they acquired that property, were going to build a fire station, and they wanted to include EMS in that project. The total cost of the project for the building is $5.3 million. The county's portion of that would be a prorated amount, depending on how much we are actually contributing or occupying. So the total amount has been agreed upon at $1.8 million. And then lastly, St. John's Fire at Kiowa Development has fenced off an area, reserved a parcel for the county to use for emergency services. It will include St. John's Fire, county EMS, and also county sheriff presence. We're currently in the concept development phase, and so you can see up there, there's 2 separate concepts that have been developed. There were some others, but these were the most popular. We're still working through what those will look like, but the intent of that exercise is to identify the best allocation of spaces in order to, first of all, meet the intent and mission of the agencies that are working out of it, but potentially to save some money if we can consolidate the facility and share spaces, much like we were doing at St. Andrews. But the first priority is to meet the mission. The Public Works work camp sheds, starting with James Island, we're 100% designed and ready to go to construction on that. We're waiting on pricing from the contractor to get started on that. This is much needed. They're essentially replacing the existing facilities that were built a long time ago for much smaller equipment. So this will help update and make their facilities much more usable. Magistrate Court for North Area Magistrate number 3 on Rivers Avenue, it's been identified as a potential move to Remount Road. The front half of that vacant facility is equivalent in amount of space to what they currently have, and so for a minimal upfit amount, we could move them into this location and give them an updated facility. Once Public Works and Facilities moves out of the Public Services building into Azalea, then that'll free up space within the Public Services building. What you see up there on the screen is on the left-hand side is the footprint that Public Works currently occupies, and on the right is the facilities management space. Both of those have already been designed and programmed for how the assessor can fit into those spaces. So the design is complete. It's sitting on the shelf and waiting for, once we move out, then we can start retrofitting and upfitting those spaces to move the assessor out of their current lease space. And finally, a quick update on the library referendum. So with the completion of the Keystone Library, all 5 new libraries are complete, as well as the 5 regional renovations from back in August in 2022. Currently under renovation are Dart, South Windermere, and Village Library. And then with the last 4 remaining branch libraries, those will all be completed by this fall. The first 3 are scheduled to be completed in August, which is great. The overall progress, this is the entire timeline for the referendum. What you see there is the gray line on the right-hand side is our current date. That shows where we currently are. Each of those different bars is a separate project, with the lighter portion of the bar indicating the design and programming. The center portion is the pricing, negotiation, and contracting and kickoff, and then the darker portion is the construction duration. So currently we're nearing completion of the construction of the branch renovations and moving into the main library.
Mr. Moody, I just want to clarify one thing when you're asking about the fueling. The fueling that is going to be part of Phase 3, so that will be demoed as part of the fueling and cleaned up. So as we move into Phase 3, I'm not sure which site you're referring to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one that's right here on Azalea, that's been there for 50
Correct.
years. So I just figured all the use over the years, the fuel, there may be some environmental concerns there that could
Very
slow
well
things
may
down.
be. And so as part of Phase 1, the fueling site, once that is up and running, they actually will demo that site and clean it up and leave with clean dirt.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is a summary of the capital improvement plan. This is the project side of it. As As John mentioned, we have shifted some projects to the beyond category. We also shifted some of the Azalea complex projects out a couple years. This allows us to address the projects that were ongoing and that are more critical to get funded in the near term. This portion of the capital improvement plan is related to the funding. We have a borrowing scheduled in May of '24 and then in May of '26 that would complete the projects that we have on the capital improvement plan. There is some planned borrowing in the beyond related to those projects. This evening, we're asking for some small reallocations of funds to be able to finish the Public Works work camps and to start on the EMS St. John's Station. As a companion to the capital improvement plan, the county has a 5-year debt management plan, which is where we repay what we've borrowed. The debt plan has the borrowings I mentioned in '24 and in '26. Those fund the capital improvement plan, and there's also some funding in each of those for public works heavy equipment. That concludes the presentation on the capital improvement plan and the debt management plan.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Moody?
Question, Mr. Giles, or maybe the capital folks. Assessor Relocation, they're across the street right now, correct?
Favorite place.
Across the highway.
That's right.
$2.8 million to move them from over here to here where we already have space?
So I think the payoff, the payback for that is, I think roughly 3 years, because what's the lease on it, Stacy? It's around $500,000 a year for the lease.
No, I get the savings. I mean, that's huge, bringing them back into space we already have. I just was questioning the $2.8 million to physically relocate from Favor Place to Bridgeview.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to know a little more about that number, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. County budget, is that going to be you or is that going to be Mac? Mr. Guile. Number C, county budget. Yes, sir.
Unless council would like to consider these items.
Are we doing these individually, or you're just going to do all of the presentations first and then move?
Let's do the first two we just went through.
All right, I would make a motion.
Second it with the right to amend up to third reading.
Right.
Absolutely.
These are just one and done tonight. So y'all will vote for these plans tonight, and then you won't see them again. They won't go through all 3 readings.
Wow, okay. I'll go so second his motion.
Yeah.
Okay, moved by Reverend Middleton, seconded by Mr. Pryor. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Tonight, we're going to talk about the county's budget. Just to give you an idea of the upcoming items, tonight we'll talk about the county budget, the special purpose districts budgets, and have the first reading of ordinances with a special county council meeting later. Then on Thursday, we'll have the second reading of the ordinances, and then on June 20th, we'll have the public hearings and the third reading of the ordinances. These are the actions that will be covered in this presentation. There are 4 ordinances and 3 directives related to the budget process.
Before getting into that, Mr. Chair, did we handle the debt management plan 1B?
I thought that vote was for both, for 1A and
1A,
1B.
that was 1A and B?
Yes,
Very
sir.
well. Okay.
Thank you.
As we go through the presentation, if you have questions on slides, please ask those. I know it's hard to remember until we get to the end. It's not that long of a presentation, but feel free to ask questions as we go along. As we started the budget, we knew we were going to be facing challenges with rising prices through competition for personnel and the market prices, as well as inflation for goods and services. We did have some strategies that we were going to implement, and we did, to try to contain those costs. We maintained the level of personnel savings that we built, which is personnel lapse from vacant positions. We also eliminated some FTEs, and we froze some FTEs. One of the major contributors to balancing the budget was maximizing the reimbursement that we had for tourist expense from accommodations tax that assisted in funding EMS and dispatch almost $9 million higher than what we had last year. The other way that we were fortunate in balancing this budget is our revenues ended up being much higher on the property tax side than we had initially anticipated. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. So the summary of this year's budget is that this is a no tax increase budget, and it addresses the concerns that the administrator had going into the process. There is a shift of millage from debt service funds to the county general fund that offset each other, and the impact on taxpayers remains no net tax increase going into next year. There are a few entities that are in the county's ordinance that do have challenges with their cost, and those fire districts for Allendale and the Northern Fire District do have tax increases. In addition to those fire districts' challenges, the Solid Waste or Environmental Management Fund is not able to keep up with its cost without having a user fee increase. This is the first increase since fiscal year 2008. It would increase the rate for single-family residents from $99 per year to $150 per year. The intention is to leave it at that rate for several years and then index it to inflation beginning in 27, so we don't fall this far behind as we move forward. The main focus, well, I'm sorry. This is an overall summary of the budget in dollars and in positions. We'll talk more in depth on the general funds in the next few slides. The debt service fund is down this year. We had some scheduled front-end loading of the debt in fiscal year 23, and we've returned more to a normal level in 24. You'll see that on several of our borrowings that we have in this budget. The special revenue funds budgets are higher. This is largely due to local accommodations tax, the increase in revenues, and the ability to find allowed uses for those funds. Also in the special revenue funds, we have the transportation sales tax, which with higher revenues, there are anticipated increases in program allocations. The enterprise funds increase is related to environmental management. For the positions, generally they have remained the same from last year. The decrease is related to the sheriff's discontinuing the school crossing guard function. So now we'll talk about the county's largest fund, which is the general fund. We'll start with the revenues. The most important part on this slide is that it is up $32 million. Talk about some of the highlights in that, the three largest areas that we had changes. Net property tax is up $14 million. Some of that is due to a shift from the debt service fund. It's about $2.5 million of it. A large portion of it is related to growth in the property base and the benefit of the point of sale legislation that's in effect in South Carolina. That went up more than we were initially anticipating, and that did help balance the budget this year. We continue to apply a credit from the local option sales tax. And in addition to the revenues that we anticipate collecting this year, we have $6 million from prior years that we're going to apply to the tax bill. Sales tax is also continuing to go up, although the pace of increase is starting to slow down. And 100% of the budgeted amount is returned as a credit. Interest income, it should be no surprise to anybody that has gone up this year. We're anticipating interest rates of 4% in next year's budget. So the other side of the equation is the expenditure side. This is up $32 million also. The Majority of that is in personnel and operating cost. For personnel, there's competitive pay that we have and increase in benefits related to employers' health insurance cost. Also reflects annualization of increases that were initiated in '23, and it does include an equity adjustment for many of our employees. The operating budget is up about $15 million. That does reflect that impact of inflation on goods and services. As far as the services, the largest increase is related to our medical contract, and we're also seeing cost of utilities going up. We do have a couple new facilities that are fully funded for this year. They were in partial operation in '23. Now we're going to transition to looking at the different directorates or components of the county's function. The first is council agencies. Council's budget is down due to lower contributions. The accommodations tax is up. We talked about the increase in the reimbursement for tourist-related costs. There are also formulas that are driven by the amount of revenue, and they impact the contributions we make to the municipalities and the Visitors Bureau. The transit budget is down. This is one that we had front-end loaded the debt in fiscal year '23, so it's lower in '24. Talked about environmental management with the user fee increase, and a large portion of that is related to inflation on the contracts that they have currently in place and their current cost of operations. It also does include $6 million in the budget to address funding needs for the capital plan for environmental management. The project that it's funding is the next line landfill cell. There will be an additional $6 million needed for that line landfill cell in '25. Appears that would be able to be absorbed from the existing user fee. As we get into '26, there's a lot more capital projects, and we may have to consider a borrowing to be able to afford those within the existing user fee. Okay. The next area are the elected officials. Some of the items that we point out are the changes in FTEs. The coroner's budget is up, and it reflects the shift of an FTE from a long-time grant, half-year funding for that. Probate courts is up for the expansion of associate probate judge hours to a full-time position. The sheriff's budget reflects full-year funding for pay increases and also for some of their contracts, including the food and medical contract. The solicitor's budget is up for the shift of 2 positions from the MacArthur grant. And their special revenue funds are higher due to funding from the state for 4 positions to assist with the court backlog. Next area are the appointed officials. Elections is up due to higher anticipated cost of the elections. The public defender is up due largely to the addition of positions, 3 shifting from the MacArthur grant, and also 3 from state funding to address the court backlog. Veterans Affairs is up. It reflects full-year funding for the position that council authorized a few months ago, and it also reflects another FTE added in '24 to address their workload. And the library is up, experiencing the same increases that we are on both their personnel and operating costs, including their facilities. Part of state legislation, the county has to approve the library's budget. That budget includes funding from other sources than the county. This is a high-level summary of that budget, their general fund and their special revenue fund. The next few slides are all under the administrator's direction. The debt service fund is down. That was another one that we front-end loaded the debt in fiscal year '23. Because the debt is static and our property base has gone up more than we anticipated, we were able to shift some of the millage from our debt service fund to the general fund to offset some of our cost increases this year. The non-departmental budget is up. This is largely due to equity increases, full-year funding for 3% increase in May, and then also an anticipated 4.5% increase in July. The Community Services Directorate has increases in DEOTIS. They have rising personnel costs as well as an equity adjustment in their budget, and they're also seeing cost increases related to medical supplies. Greenbelt program is able to allocate more funds to projects due to the revenue increase from last year. The next area is finance. Economic development's budget is down. This is due to conservative revenue estimates in our special source revenue bond funds. Employee benefits reflects the increase on health insurance for the employer. Revenue collections, being a separate fund, also has rising personnel costs. Next area is general services. Facilities management is seeing increases in utilities and contract cost. The parking garages are up due to their maintenance projects to maintain the capital portion of their garage. Safety and risk is up due to rising insurance costs, due to adding new facilities and also inflationary impacts. Workers' compensation is down due to lower claims in the recent experience. Our next area is public safety. We mentioned Allendale as increasing their millage to address the equity adjustment that must come from their funds and the addition of 4 new FTEs. Dispatch is down due to the reimbursement from accommodations tax. The Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee is up due to shifting 5 FTEs from the MacArthur grant. EMS is down like dispatch for higher reimbursement for tourist costs. The Biological Science Center is reflecting the addition of a 3rd FTE for partial year funding. Public Services has a change in fleet operations where we budgeted a lower amount for fuel than we did last year. Public Works is higher due to personnel cost. And the roads program reflects higher funding for road projects due to increased construction activity. It also is another one of the areas where we had front-end loading of the debt. The roads program is part of the transportation sales tax comprehensive plan. This also includes the Greenbelt program and the transit program that the county operates. 2 items of note here. The first sales tax is anticipated to reach the full collections in fiscal year 2027. There also is some planned borrowing in May of 26 for ongoing road projects and the second sales tax. As part of the annual state budget, they add a proviso in there that says that council has to approve contributions at a line item level. Several years ago, we started presenting these to council on one slide so that you are aware of what those contributions were. It's a little higher than it was last year. In the general fund, it's actually a little lower. Environmental management was unchanged. Majority are in accommodations tax or in the special revenue funds. That concludes the county's budget, and the next item is the special purpose districts. This summarizes their budgets. They have.
Mr. Pryor?
So on the county budget, I'd like to make a motion to approve the county's budget, but to add back in for our community investment programs, $350,000, which was originally in there from last year, but it's not in there because those are the folks that are closer to the community and do a lot for us. So I'd like to amend the budget and the community investment allocation, and with the right to amend up to 3rd reading.
Moved by Mr. Pryor. Is it
Second.
Mr. Werman? Any further discussion? Mr. Moody? Oh, Mr. Prowski, sorry.
I just have a question. What were the ongoing road projects and what was the cost of that you mentioned?
There are about 10 projects in the second transportation sales tax. It's a much longer conversation probably than I can answer at this moment. We started out with the second sales tax doing the initial design work, and then we progressed into construction. Some of those larger projects are starting to head into that construction area. So we are no longer able to do pay-as-you-go from collections. We're going to have to borrow some money to be able to construct them sooner than when we collect all the funds. That was initially how we planned to run the second sales tax.
That's my understanding.
That's not the 526 anymore, is it?
And the second
Okay.
transportation
That is-
sales tax related to that.
Any Mr. Moody?
Yeah, well, before we move off the county budget, I did want to just thank Mr. Guile and Corinne and Mr. Tootin for this budget. I've got a couple things I'll lift up to Mr. Tootin, but our friends in Greenville and Horry County both are having tax increases this year. And this is what, 20 years now, Mac, that we're not having a millage increase?
That's what everybody thinks, but we've had some.
Okay, well, let's just go with let's go with 20. Okay, just 20 is the line. Just stick with it. Stick with me, okay? But
Quietly.
But this is very impressive. Now we got our bacon saved by ATAX and some other revenues that came in higher than expected, but so that could change down the line as we have recessionary pressures that come on to us. So this is exciting. We've got other pretty well-to-do counties that are having tax increases. So I agreed also with the fee-based user fee things that we do. I mean, our solid waste has been too low for too long. I think our planning and zoning fees are too low. We've got several departments that I think we could look at user fee increases that don't impact the taxpayers, because when we don't cover our costs through user fees, the county taxpayer gets to pay for those. So I'll take that up with Mr. Tootin as we maybe look at other counties, Mr. Tootin, and see what they're doing. I really think we should, because we have some responsibility. I'm talking about Mr. Evans for code enforcement, things like that. But when we have applications that come in, they need to pay a fee to cover the cost of the service, and the taxpayer shouldn't bear that. So, a couple other things, I guess. Some of these, we get these yellow sheets about grant-funded FTEs, and at the end of the grant, the position is not, there's no responsibility to pick up the position. That just doesn't happen. I would love to see those grants continue to get renewed if possible. And grants, we've got too many people not finding money to help. I've challenged a lot of departments, and they haven't lifted a finger to find grant monies, and that's very disappointing. But overall, very positive, Mr. Tootin, Ms. Altenheim. There's good news here. I still think some things that we can tighten up on, but good news here on the budget. Thank you.
Motion on the floor?
Yeah, that's the motion, but I'd like to, Mr. Tootin, I know we've already did a 3% increase for the county employees, correct?
Yes, sir.
We're looking at another 4.5, so that's 7.5. But my concern is, I would like to know what that amount in money, that 4.5 could cost us, because with inflation and what the economy fixing to go into a recession, I don't want us to be caught with having to lay people off next year because we can't fund their salaries. So I'd just like to know what it would cost, and maybe we can say, another 2%, and then later on next year, another 2.5. But I don't want to overextend ourselves, and then we get caught short, having to either raise the taxes to pay for these salaries next year, or either start laying people off.
Yes, sir.
Give us, 2 more readings to figure out what we want to do with that. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah. Excuse me. Opposed?
I don't know what I'm opposing, but I think I do oppose.
That's the,
So tell me, we're adding $350,000 for what?
The investment partners, those are the folks that are in the community, and they fill out application every year to help do things in the community that we ourselves if we did it would cost us tremendous amount of money. And so with a $32 million increase in revenues, I just found it strange that we cut $350,000 from community investments versus, so I told Mr. Tootin I would ask that it be put back into the budget because those are the folks that work out, especially during the pandemic.
So these are the individuals, Mr. Chair, these are the individuals who go through the competitive process and they are funded through the community outreach office, or?
Yes, sir.
This is that
Yes.
money?
Yes, sir.
So that's not already?
No, that's not giving it to one
contemplated in the
particular
budget?
group. Everybody would have to fill out an application.
Should we get a roll call?
I'm confused. So don't we have a process already for that?
We do. The Budget Department administers that process.
We didn't fund
The
it.
top line of the contributions, like community investment allocation, that was something that we did not include in the budget as we were having difficulty balancing both ends.
So that would be the amounts that are given, to those community organizations up to whatever, a certain amount. This is,
$10,000.
that's what we're talking about? Okay.
They have to go through a competitive process to do that, and that's, how is that, I forgot, is that, who handles that competitive process?
Budget department.
Okay.
I think I drew the short straw on that one. Council approved the parameters, I can't remember how many years ago. We have small projects, we have large projects. The smaller entities are 250,000 or less of revenues. It borrows information from other places that we can verify. It uses information from the IRS to determine how much they spend on programs. The threshold is 75% of spending on programs to be eligible. It also includes the requirement if you have more than $1 million in revenue, you have to have an independent audit. You have to be in good standing with the Secretary of State. We take the
Chairman.
applications in and allocate the funds.
Councilman, also, it's based on a formula. The numbers, everything's input, it comes out, so there's really not any discretionary. I mean, it's all formalized and based on the information that we can verify from the other agencies across the state and federal for that, as Mr. Guile indicated.
Yeah, I remember all of that. Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Why
Yes,
are we
Mr.
trying to
Boykin?
put that back in?
Mr. Giles, my only concern right now is we have a balanced budget as presented. Where would we cut
That's right.
$350,000 out of these other things that were prioritized?
I was hoping council was going to help me with that. I've heard different things mentioned as we were discussing the budget. I think staff will come back with some suggestions before next reading.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Foster?
Do we have a roll call vote on that, or did we?
We can.
Right, I think
We
so.
can, but
wasn't sure
I want to
what
make sure we get through the discussion here before we
Okay.
have a roll call vote. Is there any more discussion on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And so this motion is to
Mr.
approve the
Chair.
budget with the amendment?
Mr. Chair, so.
Yes, sir.
Is this amount, 350,000, an arbitrary number, or is this a number that existed prior and we're trying to bring it back? I mean, where's the 350,000 coming from?
If I'm not mistaken, sir, it was, last year was 300,000, correct, Mac?
Yes, sir.
And we did not use all of that, was not allocated?
We didn't, I think there was $50,000 or so that wasn't allocated. Some of that is due to receiving funds through other areas, such as ARPA programs that are in
That's
place.
right.
The community investment program has a cap of 10,000, but if you receive funding from other areas of the county, then you're limited. But we didn't receive as many applications last year because I think they were applying over to the ARPA funds. Not sure when that transition might occur.
Might I ask another question?
Yes, sir.
Have we exhausted all of the ARPA funds? Or are any of those in the future?
have not.
I know we have a certain date, but are any of those funds in the future still available for some of the same allocations that we've done for organizations that are doing good work in the community?
Ms. Durant?
Mic is not turning on. Well, now it is. Council has allocated and approved the money, the full amount of the ARPA allocation. There are programs that would fund some organizations that potentially would also apply to community investment. Of course, the difference is the federal funds have more strings and more requirements. But all the money has been allocated, so there's not, I'm trying to think if there's any particular nonprofit program that y'all approve that matches that. And I don't think there's anything that matches those standards. It would match more the standards that you all approved for the programs last August.
But there are still opportunities for people to apply. Okay, thank you.
Councilman, would you like a list of all the past, the organizations?
I memorized that list.
Okay.
Because I opposed them in the past,
Mr. Guile, I'm sorry.
some form.
Mr. Guile, so the budget is balanced right now without that being in the budget, correct? So if we add that to the budget, we have to find it somewhere.
That would be the preferable approach, yes.
Thank you. Everyone ready to vote? Ms. Salisbury?
Yes, sir. Mr. Boykin?
I'm sorry, one question. I want to make sure we know we're voting to approve the budget with the additional $350,000. And up to third, and you could amend up to third reading. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Boykin?
No.
Mr. Darby is absent. Ms. Honeycutt? No. Mr. Kabrowski?
No.
Mr. Middleton?
Yeah, I would vote no, only because, again, there are other opportunities through ARPA funds and funds that have not yet fully been exhausted. And certainly, based on a process, I think that we need to follow that we already have based on our council rules and administrative policies that are in place. Those individuals need to go through that particular process. I've championed that before, and I'm going to be consistent.
Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Mr. Werman?
Aye.
Mr. Sass?
If I vote yay, we have a 4-4 tie, and we'll have to vote again. I mean, the budget can't fail
Right.
because of $350,000. I'll vote yay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we approve the budget as written.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Honeycutt, and seconded by Mr. Boykin to approve the budget as written. Any further discussion? I'm sorry.
With the ability to amend up to third reading.
With the ability to amend up to third reading.
That was all.
Anybody else? Okay. Another roll call vote, please.
Mr. Boykin?
Aye.
Mrs. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Mr. Kabrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Middleton?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Mr. Werman?
Aye.
Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Motion passes with 8 ayes and 1 absent.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Next, special purpose districts.
So I'm going to backtrack to the special purpose districts. This is a summary of the special purpose districts budgets. They have some of the same challenges related to inflation that everybody else is experiencing. Some of the entities do have tax increases to address this. St. Andrews Parks and the 2 fire districts have requested tax increases for this upcoming year. So on the list of items that staff is asking council to consider tonight, you've addressed the first one, approving the county budgets. There are 2 ordinances that are related to the solid waste user fee. One is more of an annual ordinance, and the fee ordinance is to consolidate all the solid waste user fee information in one location. We just talked about the special purpose districts, and then we do have 3 council directives to approve a couple more plans and also to approve the library's budgets.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. Would it be appropriate to take items D, E, and F? Approval with, Ms. Clerk, can we amend those up to third reading, or will these just go away after one?
Yes, sir. Those would be amend up to third reading.
Second.
Approved D, E, and F with ability to amend up to third readings for.
Second.
Yep.
Moved and seconded All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
on 1G, environmental management, move for approval.
Second.
With the amend up the third reading.
Second.
Because it's a plan, it just goes through one vote tonight.
Or move for approval.
Second.
Moved and
No, sorry,
seconded.
excuse me.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would move that we approve the library budget, general and special revenue.
Second.
Moved by Reverend Middleton, seconded by Mr. Pryor. All in favor
Mr.
say
Chairman.
aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
I wanted to just, I'm going to support this tonight, but Mr. Tootin, I would like to talk about this increase in $31.19 million to $35.9 million. This is not sustainable, so I'd like to dig into that number a little bit.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
You have with the right to amend up the third reading.
Yes,
Is that in your motion?
absolutely.
Thank you. A second stands in.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Got this one too.
Mr. Chairman,
One more. Yes, sir.
one aye, move to approve.
Second.
With the right to amend up the third reading.
Seconded by Mr. Pryor. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next item
Should not be.
is Special County Council Agenda,
Yes, sir.
Freedom of Information Act.
In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of meeting was posted and agendas were distributed to news media and persons requesting notification.
Item number 2, committee recommendations with first reading ordinances. Fiscal year 24 county budget, request to approve.
Committee recommendations, all
Second.
4 items.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Moody and seconded by Ms. Honeycutt for items 2A, 2B, 2C, and 2D. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you.
Okay. An ordinance providing for the levy of taxes for corporate purposes of Charleston County for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024, hereinafter referred to as fiscal year 2024, making appropriations from the general fund and other funds of Charleston County for such purposes and further providing for the levy of taxes for corporate purposes of Charleston County, including the Allendale-McClellanville Consolidated Fire District, East Cooper Fire District, Northern Charleston County Fire District, West St. Andrews Fire District, and Trident Technical College for fiscal year 2024, providing for appropriations from such special funds created for the purposes of the Allendale-McClellanville Consolidated Fire Protection District, East Cooper Fire District, Northern Charleston County Fire District, West St. Andrews Fire District, and Trident Technical College in order to supply the necessary functions of the units, providing for budget control of the appropriations by the Charleston County Council and the county administrator, making provisions for the fiscal affairs of Charleston County, and providing for the issuance of tax anticipation notes in an amount up to $50 million for Charleston County and up to $1 million for the Allendale-McClellanville Consolidated Fire Protection District. And then item B is an ordinance relating to the imposition of annual solid waste recycling and disposal fees for the disposition of solid waste and recycling, providing for classifications of real property subject to annual solid waste recycling and disposal fees, and establishing the amount of the annual solid waste recycling and disposal fees. Item C is an ordinance approving the budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024, and directing the auditor of Charleston County to levy the necessary millage and the treasurer to collect taxes for the Charleston County Park and Recreation Commission, the Cooper River Park and Playground Commission, the North Charleston District, the St. Andrews Parish Parks and Playground Commission, the St. John's Fire District, and the St. Paul's Fire District, and providing for the issuance of tax anticipation notes in an amount up to $3 million for the Charleston County Park and Recreation Commission, up to $1,100,000 for the St. Andrews Parks and Playground Commission, and up to $1,500,000 for the St. John's Fire District. And then finally, item D is an ordinance amending those portions of Charleston County Code, Section 2-137, dealing with fees in the solid waste department.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Finance Committee recommendations.
Mr. Chair, move to approve items 3A through E.
Moved by Reverend Middleton and seconded by Mr. Boykin. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Yeah. The ayes have it. Thank you all very much.
It doesn't have a third reading. There's no.
Yes, sir. It is the finance committee.
Okay, good. All right. Mr. Pryor?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank Ms. Ham and the environmental management staff. I know it was in the newspaper, but we never said much at the county council meeting on how DHEC has approved us now and gotten us out of where we needed to be. So, Ms. Ham, I want to thank you and your staff for getting us to where we need to be. And that was a big thing because DHEC was, was riding our back, and we had some issues, and it's all straightened out now. So I just want the public to know that we did what we had to do to get it straightened out.
Thank you, Mr. Pryor. I do want to let council know, my mic is not working, but I do want to let council know that today, about an hour ago, we received notification that we passed our most recent inspection by DHEC.
Oh, that's even big news.
Thank you, Ms. Ham. It was great to meet Mr. Q last week, and enjoyed meeting him, and we look forward to working with him. So thank you very much. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Record all the readings like pre-meeting, then press play.